This is the ultimate Linux playground, a framework laptop 13 built from the ground up for Linux. And I love it. I could swap out the SSD within 5 minutes and just jump into another distro. But when I posted a video about it, so many of you said, the ThinkPad is the ultimate Linux laptop and repairable and upgradable too. Just get one of those and you'll be happy. So was my framework just overkill for what I was using it for? Are ThinkPads truly the ultimate repairable laptop? And to find out, I bought one for $120, a 7-year-old T480. Initially, when I saw all the comments, I just brushed them aside. How could such an old and cheap laptop actually be better than a $1,200 2025 Framework 13? But eventually, I caved and started doing research on why they were so good, why there was a die-hard cult around them. That's where I learned the best bang for buck ThinkPads are the T480s. They cost around $150, which didn't sound so bad. It was like one really expensive meal for a family of 5, which actually sounded like an easy entryway into testing something that I wasn't quite sure about. So I went to eBay first, but those were $200 and up, and some came without a power adapter, which it's recommended you should use the original power cables. What a ripoff! Then I went to Jawa.gg, the sponsor of today's video, but more on them later. There, I got very lucky since they happened to have exactly one ThinkPad in stock, a T480 for $120. So I pressed checkout and waited for it to arrive. I couldn't wait to see what the hype was about ThinkPads. Part of me wondered, was $120 actually a good deal? I don't have any tech that's lasted this long, other than my precious rice cooker. But that thing does one thing. It cooks rice. It doesn't have to connect to the internet or load but tons of JavaScript. Also, there wasn't much information in the laptop listing on the actual parts that it had or the condition of everything. But I didn't worry for too long. It arrived soon after and I could just test it out for myself. Luckily, the thing did boot up. I wasn't scammed after all. I noticed it ran a bit laggily or slower than I would have liked, but that was expected. While I was doing research earlier, I also saw that you could upgrade almost all the parts in it, from the SSD all the way to the battery. Only the CPU I couldn't upgrade. So I had made a note of potential upgrades I wanted to do, definitely the RAM and the battery. My T480 came with only 8 gigabytes of RAM, and in 2025, that is nothing. You can open up like 10 Chrome tabs before the system starts stuttering. So I opted to level it up to 16 gigabytes of RAM, double what it currently has. It's less than what I would have wanted, but this RAM is so old that Crucial designates it as end of life, and bigger options like 32 and 64 gig weren't available, at least not for a reasonable price. It's totaled $93. If you think about it, it's almost what I paid for the laptop itself. For the battery, I figured a 7-year-old battery is most likely blasted. I saw a post on Reddit that recommended original batteries, but they're hard to come by. They approved of aftermarket batteries, so I took my search there. There were guides and parts available on iFixit, and I found a battery that had 4.9 stars, and it was only $67. So altogether, we're at a grand total of $330 that I've sunk so far. But really, it's still under the cost of a modern day Chromebook, and those aren't fun to use at all. So am I actually getting ripped off? Maybe buying a used ThinkPad was more costly than I originally thought it would be? Only time will tell. Honestly, it's a small cost for being able to experience the magic that is ThinkPad. But you know it won't be a ripoff. Buying from Jawa.gg, the sponsor of today's video. Jawa is one of the best places online to buy and sell gaming gear and PC hardware. You can even get completely custom PCs from there. Their mission is to make it a safe place for everyone. No more scams, no scalpers like you see on other platforms. Jawa focuses on trust. They vet all their sellers and manually review and audit them. And if anything goes wrong, they'll take a look at it to see what went wrong instead of going through automated responses. I even found a new ThinkPad listing for a T470 for $110 with a 1080p 60Hz display, and it'll even come before the holidays. Lucky! But if you're looking for a more modern PC, they've got you covered with that too, with their PC Finder. There's so many PC parts that it's hard to figure out which parts are compatible with each other and can play the games that you want to play. And once you finish answering all the questions, you can even filter it down to different vibes like cozy, compact, and minimalist. Ah, yes! You can get a small form factor PC for Christmas if you'd like. So if you're looking for a last-minute holiday gift, check out Jawa. They've got epic deals going on, from custom PCs to even retro handhelds like PSPs and Game Boy Colors. Replacing these parts was so easy, just as easy as the framework. In fact, a lot of the steps reminded me of the framework. You unscrew these screws on the back and then you pop it open, just like the framework. After that, you want to look for what you want to replace, and there's guides, so I I followed along. The RAM is held into place by these little metal hinges. You just pull out the old ones and plop in the new ones. Easy peasy. And the battery. Oh, the battery. That was just old battery snap out, new battery snap in. They're hot swappable, which means if you wanted to buy 3 of them and just keep loading them in like magazines when you run out of power, you could. That's when I had a thought. Framework didn't invent anything new. Modular, repairable, and upgradable laptops already existed almost a decade ago with ThinkPads. Framework's just a more modern version of a ThinkPad for a higher price point. Sure, it comes with new chips, better RAM, newer parts, but the overall concept is the same. It's unfortunate that today's modern ThinkPads have actually moved away from this design philosophy, because how cool would it be if the world could have ThinkPads and frameworks just competing with each other? Now we're talking. But Lenovo is making ThinkPads less of those things, which left a hole for framework to jump in and take over. It's almost like they're parallel devices from different time periods and different companies. A bit weird if you think about it, but alas, that's how business works. One company moves on to something else, it leaves a hole for someone else to come in and take over. Once I got all the upgrades in, this thing felt way better, much faster. But with Windows 11, it just didn't feel like I was capitalizing on my upgrades. Sure, it was better, but not the streamlined conditions that we're used to. You don't want to open your laptop only to wait 5 seconds for a program to open up. With our short attention spans, we need it to be immediate, which means it was finally time to do the deed. That's right, it's Linux time. Oh, yes. Since it's an old laptop, a lightweight distro made more sense on the T480 instead of one with more of the pretty features. That reminded me of something I saw a while back when I first started my Linux journey, like 6 months ago, something called Mint XFCE. The tagline for it is light, simple, efficient, and lighter on resource usage. A perfect fit for my upgraded T480. And with my handy dandy thumb drive in tow, I flashed Mint, and a couple minutes later, it installed. Unsurprisingly, it took Mint like a champ. Now, what follows could either be a perfect Linux experience or a troubleshooting nightmare, and only testing it would reveal the truth. But there was one thing that I haven't tried yet, something so iconic to all ThinkPad users across the span of time: the TrackPoint. That's right, the iconic red nipple in the middle of the keyboard. It's the cornerstone of what makes a ThinkPad. So when I went to use it, nothing happened. No movement, nada, zilch. Did Mint break it? But to be honest, I don't remember it doing anything on Windows either. Perhaps it was broken? So I opened it up, which is easier than you might think. Apparently, the TrackPoint cable was ripped apart, but the trackpad and keyboard still worked fine. That's somehow a miracle and a curse in disguise. Because mostly everything worked, I doubt even the previous owner knew that the TrackPoint was, in fact, broken. And honestly, I couldn't blame him. It was cheap and affordable. Thankfully, I found a replacement part on iFixit for $49, so I ordered one and waited on my toes, excited for the day it arrived, hoping that it would arrive soon. But as we sway back and forth on our toes, it was time to test the ThinkPad by committing to using it as my daily laptop for every single task I did. After all, this is a work laptop. That's why there's a cult behind these. The first day was a tad bit painful, but it wasn't because of anything the ThinkPad did. With any new laptop, I would have the same problems, which is I had to log into every account that I use, and that meant 2-factor and security keys. One of which is this thing called a Google Titan key. It's a physical key that you have to connect into your laptop and then press the circle bit when prompted. But I had no USB-C port, or at least I didn't see one. This laptop's almost 8 years old. I mean, why would it have such a modern port? Then I realized it did. For charging, could that also work for my authenticator? It wouldn't hurt to try, right? So I plugged it in and it worked. Miracles do happen. So after about an hour, I had every account set and ready to go. Now for the real fun. Typing away happily on the keyboard, which is actually enjoyable to use. Sure, it's not mechanical or ultra fancy, but the way it hugs your fingers just makes sense. It like makes you type faster. Is that why you guys love this laptop so much? Maybe it's the red dot that acts like a honing beacon. It's subconsciously guiding your hands to naturally rest your fingers on the home row. Or maybe it's the unique shape of the keys. Maybe it's a secret. This thing even had nav keys like page up and page down. Sure, they were in strange places all over the place, but it had them. Delete over backspace made sense too. Why have I never seen this layout before? It's a superior keyboard layout, although I do accidentally hit page up and down while reaching for the arrow keys, and that messed me up a ton. The only thing that kept throwing me off was the left bottom most FN key. I was so used to control being there there, but the more I think about it, the more it starts making sense. You actually use FN all the time, randomly, like for renaming files, for taking screenshots, for doing who knows what. And whenever I have to do that on another keyboard, I have to search for it. Where's the FN? So there's some quirks here, some upsides, some downsides, and over time, if you get used to this layout, I think you could be more efficient. But that wasn't all. There's also indicators all over the place to give you information on your laptop's condition. When you close it, this little dot over the eye blinks occasionally to tell you, yes, the laptop is still on. It's just suspended. A subtle yet helpful cue. There are a lot of little LED light indicators all over the keyboard too. There's one for mute, one for mute your volume, mute your mic, and caps lock, which are all useful in calls or doing screen recordings. And then there's a little square here next to the arrow keys. I have no idea what that is, but I'm hoping it's a fingerprint reader. I did some research and it in fact is not a fingerprint sensor. Disappointing. But it is a placeholder for an optional upgrade that ThinkPad users had back in the day. A color sensor that did monitor calibration. Nifty, I suppose. Now I wondered, what else was I not noticing yet with my laptop? I've been using it for a full day, but there were so many things I didn't see yet, like how there's so many ports. Modern laptops have like 3 USB-C ports, and that's it. My MacBook's like that, so is my Dell XPS. And the framework has a total of 4 ports, which are customizable depending on what you choose, but still, only 4. In contrast, the ThinkPad is like a dock in itself. On the right, there's 2 USB-A ports, an Ethernet port, an SD card reader, and an HDMI and an aux. The left side has USB-C for charging, and what appears to be a USB-C and USB-A right next to each other. At first, I didn't recognize it, but plugging my phone in confirms it is USB-C, so it has 2? Oh, wow. I always bring a USB hub with me because my laptop has no ports. I like hardwired internet connection, but my ThinkPad doesn't need that. I can just carry this thing around without all the extra accessories. But as I was doing research on all the ports, I saw that you can use the leftmost side as a docking station connector. Oh boy, I've got to look that one up. So I caved and I bought one for $35. I've already spent so much money. What's another $35? When it arrived, I was stoked. It had keys. What were they for? My complimentary ThinkPad car included with my new laptop? Probably not, but that would be cool. They're actually for theft protection. If you imagine you're in an office building, anybody could just up and steal your precious ThinkPad from you if you weren't at your desk. Well, worry no more, because now you just take your keys with you wherever you go. Zoom, zoom. Oh wait, that's Mazda. On a side note, the dock works like a charm. For $35, I've got everything that was attached to my $500 TS5 Plus in this Lenovo dock. That's right, 49-inch Samsung G9 OLED monitor running 1440p. It works. Wireless Razer 8K mouse, wireless keyboard, audio engine speakers. They were all connected and working no problemo. This thing might as well replace my MacBook Pro as well as my framework. Why even buy new laptops nowadays, especially when docking stations cost like $500? And for the price of my dock, I could have gotten 4 ThinkPads. We even got hardwired internet and Bluetooth headphones connected. Sort of the dream. Well, it's not much different than a modern day laptop, if I'm being totally honest. Sure, you can hear the fan running a bit, but the temperature doesn't even get as high as my framework. And after about a week of use, it could do all my work, listen to music, and still be completely fine. So I wondered what gaming would do to this thing. I've heard some older ThinkPads have built-in graphics cards, but not this one. So I threw on some low-intensity games like Stardew Valley. Those are wonderful ways to get sidetracked while working. It took these games no problem. But again, it's a work laptop. Asking more than that from a 7-year-old laptop seems unfair. Even my old gaming PCs from back then would struggle in today's environment. So I installed RetroArch, moved over my small library of ROMs I've collected in the past couple months. Sure, they're not AAA Steam games or even intense indie games, but they work. It could even run Need for Speed 2 Underground at around 23 to 30 FPS at native resolution. Now that's a beautiful thing. Okay, it's not the best, but it's pretty dang capable if it can run strenuous PS2 games. There were so many questions running through my mind now. Is this thing going to hit its limit on anything work-related? I watched YouTube on 4K even. I opened up tabs, kept programs open in the background. It didn't stutter once. But what about a true challenge? What about video editing? I do a bit of that from time to time. Nothing crazy, just a rough A-roll cut here and there. After about 30 minutes of troubleshooting how to install DaVinci Resolve on Linux Mint, I finally did it, only to realize that Resolve does not work without a discrete GPU. But I did find a Linux replacement called Kden Live that basically does everything I needed to, and that ran decent. Then my TrackPoint and keyboard arrived in the mail, and replacing it was much easier than expected, or at least it should have been. I accidentally followed a guide for replacing the trackpad, which had me take off way more parts than necessary. So I put all that stuff back, realizing that I had the wrong guide open. So all you have to do is unscrew these two screws back here, and then you pull out the existing keyboard. There were ribbon cables, of course, but it wasn't too bad. They're pretty thick and sturdy cables, but finally, I had the red nipple unlocked. Initially, I didn't get it. Thought it felt weird, but then I learned you have to hold a direction to move it instead of using it like a trackpad. The location of it is pretty nice. With it being in the middle of the keyboard, I could just move my cursor and go back to typing without lifting my hand too far away. And with the mouse button right under it, it just made sense to use your thumb to click on the left click button. The best part was that I could quickly scroll up and down by holding the middle click and then putting your finger on the nipple. It was a huge unlock, but even with all that, are there downsides to using an old ThinkPad? Absolutely. But also, these old ThinkPads are like the old cars with great manufacturing in the 60s. All the other things, upgradable, repairable, compatibility with Linux, just makes ThinkPads really useful machines. And at some point, I accidentally dropped the thing, and it still worked. It's like Nokia. So I can safely say ThinkPads truly are the ultimate Linux machines. I get it now. ThinkPads are tried and tested, battled against time, weathered against update storms. They truly are invincible. But there's one thing that might take them down. Time. It's only a matter of time before the CPU becomes obsolete, no longer able to handle what modern computing throws at it. But for now, these things are cheap and they're sturdy and they're completely usable. I do see the magic behind them. And now that I've been down the old ThinkPad route, I'm sort of curious what the difference is with the newer ThinkPads nowadays. Should I try it?